Hello, welcome to Sunfire Designs. Today I am going to do a more detailed tutorial on how to make your own silicone mold. And I'm going to list the supplies that you need first, and then I will go from there. So one of the first things you need is you need a sheet of like plexiglass. Now for this step, it's not quite as important to have the plexiglass. But for the next step, when you're pouring the resin in it, you definitely will need to have the plexiglass because this has a film on it, but when you peel it back, it's a nice, smooth surface so that you get a nice, smooth top for your piece. So you may have seen this. This is the ring from my last video where I made the bubble mold. And this is what it's going to end up looking like. It's this piece here. You can take and you can glue it down on top of plexiglass and then fill it up, and then the smooth part will be the top part of your mold, or the bottom part of your mold. It'll be the top part of your piece. So what you're going to do is, first thing I do is I start off and I take a mold about the size of what I want it to be. So this is just an older mold I have, and I just basically use it for tracing circles. And on the back side of this, I traced a circle on here the same size as this, which is kind of my guideline so I don't make my piece too big. I don't want it to be much bigger than this, otherwise it'll use too much resin to fill. It will be harder to put it in a housing and use more silicone. So that's kind of my goal, is to keep it right around there. You're also going to need a scale because the silicone putty has to be measured by weight. So it's 1-to-1 by weight. The working time is 3 minutes. So once you mix it up, you have to work very fast, which sounds really intimidating, but if you have everything all laid out and ready to go, it's really not that bad. So the curing time is 15 to 20 minutes. So after 20 minutes, it should be cured. I usually let mine go about at least an hour before I mess with it. Then you're going to want something to press into the putty. For this particular one, I got these pieces of, they're like weird shaped fake ice. They're used to fill vases in, to put in vases. So this is, these are the original ones that I saw. They came in a little kit of like, these are acrylic pumpkins. So I thought these were really cool, and so I found them on Amazon because I didn't have enough. I found them on Amazon, so these are the same thing. They're shiny, so they'll leave a shiny edge. Anything dull is going to come out dull in your finished product. Anything shiny will come out shiny. So I wanted it to have a shiny edge, and then I'm just going to take, and once I make my ring, I'm just going to press these in everywhere and then let them cure, and then I'll take them out. And as long as, I mean, I can reuse them over and over. What I'll do is just wash them in between, but, and I'll just keep them separated out. I got a giant bag of these. And so I will put links to everything in the description so you can find stuff. I got this plexiglass at Ace Hardware. It's a little thicker than what I like. The other plexiglass I got on Amazon is thinner and I like it better, but I'll put a link to that also on in the description. So all right, so what I'm going to do, I also got a couple pieces of wax paper here so that I can put my putty on the scale, and it's not going to add any weight to it. So when I go to weigh it, let me move this up a little bit. Sorry, I'm going to readjust here to make sure you can see. Okay, so if I do that, then it adds a little weight to it. It has no weight to it, sorry, distracted myself. There's no weight to this, so I can turn it on and it'll be at 0, whether it's on here or not. So if it's on here 0, if I take it off, it's 0. It doesn't weigh anything, and it doesn't affect what I'm doing. So for the putty, each one of these has 227 grams, and I use about 100 grams on here. And so I end up with a little bit left over. So I have a little bit left over from my last batch. So I'm going to take that out, and I'm just going to weigh these out right now. And then what I'll do is I will mix them with the camera off so that you don't have to sit here and watch me mix things. And because that's kind of boring if I mix it, you know, for a couple minutes. So I'm just going to measure it out until I get 100 on the scale. And it's nice because I can just, you know, add a little bit at a time. And each one of these jar sets will make at least 2 molds. And then after you've had a few of them, it'll make an extra mold because you don't use the whole thing each time. Almost there. 99, I'm going to call it. I don't really think adding, well, I guess I could add a little bit more. 100. There we go. So that one's done. I'm going to put my little, if I can find what I did with it, I'm going to put this back in here to keep it sealed. Oh, geez, Louise. If I am able to. All right. So that one's measured out. Gonna move this, set it to the side. Put this on here. Now, silicone is really greasy. So you can see my hands are really greasy. And I'm just gonna kind of try to rinse some of this off. I'm gonna end up mixing them up anyway, but I don't want anything to start, you know, curing or anything before I'm ready. And then before I put it on here, I'm gonna peel this off so that I've got a nice clean surface. Excuse me. Allergies are driving me nuts. Everything's blooming here because it's been raining so much. All right. Do this. And I'm just going to measure out 100 more. And okay, that went to 101. I don't want 101. There we go. Darn it. 101. Okay, there. It's just gonna, you know what? I'm just gonna leave it. It's gonna be temperamental. It's actually moving as I'm talking because this is flapping. So it's 100. We're good to go. All right. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to mix this up, and you mix it up until it's completely combined and you don't have any, there's no white in it. It's all just like a lighter color blue. And then when I have it mixed up, I will come back because I don't want to, I'm going to have to go work pretty fast. And then that part goes pretty fast. It's only like 3 minutes that I have to work with. So let me go ahead and pause this and I'll be back when I've got it mixed up. Okay, I finished that up. I did a little time lapse, not sure if I'll use it or not. So now this is the hardest part, is making a ring around there and trying to make it kind of even because it needs to go all the way around and you want it to be even, but you also got to do it fast. So I end up kind of moving it around a little bit, making sure the point where you join it together, that you join it firmly. I want my walls to be kind of high, and it needs to be as even as possible because otherwise what'll happen is you'll have one short edge and then the rest of it will be taller. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pour the ice in here, and I'm just going to press the ice along the inside. And if I need more, I've got more in that cup, but I'm just trying to do this as fast as possible. And then if I need to fill in any holes or make it taller, I can do that. I think this will look really, really cool once it's done. Get some nice ice in here, sticking it in places everywhere it will fit. And it doesn't have to be like perfectly round unless that's what you want. Like mine are never perfectly round. And Just trying to make sure that I've got them pushed in everywhere that there's a space for them. And as you go, it ends up kind of pushing everything out. So you got to push it back in this way. That way you don't end up with a really bigger, a lot bigger mold than what you really wanted. And I think this is going to look so cool. I think there's one already in there. It's hard to see. Sorry if I'm putting my hair in front of the camera. I'm trying to make sure that I have everything crammed in here as best as I can. And that it's all the same height. Kind of feel like this is good. And these look like either ice crystals or just really big crystals. So I think that's probably as much as I'm going to get done in here. I'm trying to stick them up kind of high too, so even if something happens like that, it goes really high, that I will have the room. All right, there we go. So now we're just going to let it sit for, I probably won't come and undo this until tomorrow. Maybe I'll do it tonight. I don't know. We'll see. If I do, then I will definitely record that, and then I'll come back when it's time for me to pour the resin into it to make our blank. That's our template. Okay, so this is the ring, then we do the template, and then we do the actual silicone mold part. All right, I think that's it. Fingers crossed. See you in a little bit. Okay, it's been about a little over 20 minutes, and I am back, and I can take these little crystal things out now, and they have left their mark. Here, let me see if I can put this down a little closer. They have left their mark in the silicone. In fact, you just almost can brush them off depending on how far in they're stuck. And then we should get a good look at our final results for the ring here. Let me put on a little time lapse, and then I will come back to show you the results. All right, you can see now that I've taken out all of those pieces of crystals. Okay, and they're nice and shiny, and they've got flash to them. So I'm going to go ahead and put this down and let it sit to finish, making sure that it's totally finished, solidifying. Nothing else is going to press into this. I can press and push and nothing's going to happen. But I do want it to hold its shape nice and well. So I'm going to leave it overnight, and then tomorrow I will come in and I will pour some resin into it. It's going to have to be adhered to a different piece of acrylic to keep it clean. I'm probably going to trim off some of these little pieces on here to make sure there's no little thin pieces, so that it's nice and clean. And then yeah, we will pour our resin then. I'll see you then. Okay, we are back. It's actually been like 2 days. I didn't get a lot done yesterday. I did end up going back and I added a little bit of height on this one side because it was dipping down too low and I was worried it wasn't going to be deep enough. So hopefully that will be okay. I don't think you'll be able to really tell because it's probably not going to come up all the way, but I just added a little bit more and then crushed the crystals in it. Also, off camera, I did adhere this to a new piece of acrylic, and that's so that this bottom piece, you want it to be super, super clean. And, you know, I wear gloves. I don't touch it because I want to make sure that it doesn't have any smudges, because any smudges or anything in here is going to transfer onto your template, which is going to transfer onto your final mold. So I adhered this on here using this. It's actually almond colored. I didn't realize that. It doesn't matter because obviously you're not going to see it. I had previously used this one. I'm just going to tell you, this one stinks. It is so bad. You have to wear like a mask when you're doing it. It's just that bad. It brings tears to your eyes that bad. So I didn't use that this time. I decided to try this one and it was much better. I still did wear a mask, but when I took it off, the smell didn't permeate the room or anything like that. So I did use this. I got this at Ace. If I can find a link for it for Amazon, I'll put it in the description. But basically it's 100% silicone, and silicone sticks to silicone, and then it won't stick to the acrylic forever, but it'll stick to it long enough for me to get my template done, and then after that I'll be able to peel it off and that'll be fine. So it should be sealed in there. It makes a waterproof seal. All I did was I took and I squeezed out a layer right along here, and then I used a popsicle stick to just spread it evenly and thinly. And then I put it on there, pressed it down all over the place, and then I let it dry overnight. So that's this. I mixed up some Estoyo resin, the 1-to-1 resin. I do not recommend using the 2-to-1 deep pour resins. I did try to make a template with the 2-to-1 deep pour resin, and it had a reaction with the acrylic for some reason. I'm not sure exactly what was in it. It's the Teak Spurt, which I love the Teak Spurt 2-to-1 deep pour, but for some reason it adhered to the acrylic and just got sticky, and it kind of ruined it. I had to redo it. So I'm using Estoyo 1-to-1. This has worked really well for me in the past. I just added one little drop of the turquoise to it just so that it's not plain. I don't know, it doesn't matter, but I mixed up 240 mils. I might not use it all, but I wanted to have a little extra, and if I don't need it, I'll stick it in another project I have going on. So there are people that will use hot glue and seal around here. The reason I don't like to do that is because the hot glue adheres to both, and it's really hard. It will absolutely stick to the acrylic. And while it does create a seal, you can create a seal using the silicone putty just as easily. So I don't like to use the hot glue. I used it for the last one I did and was not a fan. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pour this in. I've let it sit for a while. It does have micro bubbles in it, but that is not important. Okay, what's important is that you just pour it gently and slowly so that it can like ease into any cracks and crevices and not leave any bubbles. You can go and take a silicone tool and go around the edges to make sure you don't have any bubbles. But in my experience, I don't usually end up with too many bubbles around the edge. So I'm just going to fill it up with as much as it will hold. Look for your lowest point. So I think my lowest point is up here, and just keep an eye on it to make sure that that it's not going to overflow. So this should be cured overnight. And just, yeah, pour it slow and keep an eye on it, because sometimes it can look like it's, you know, getting close, and then if you stop pouring, it keeps rising. I have had that happen to me before. I think I'm going to stop here because it's actually right up to the edge here and almost to the edge there. So see, I barely needed this, but I'm glad I poured it because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to go up this far. So let me scrape this off. I ended up using, wow. I ended up using like 210, it looks like. 210 mils. Now, I'm not going to be able to move it. You can't put it on a hot, mat, because I don't know. Well, you might be able to, but I don't know what it'll do to the acrylic, and I don't want it to warp. So, and then for the bubbles, I just spritz. I don't want to torch it. I don't want to risk anything. So, and I just need to keep an eye on it because it's really close right here. And if it starts to go over, I'll need to pull some out. But it's like, I probably should have, remember how I said you stop before you think you need to stop? I probably should have stopped. So I'm just going to keep an eye on that, and hopefully it does not overflow. The bubbles will kind of rise up. It's not going to be 100% bubble free, and that's okay. So now we just let it cure, and then tomorrow at this time, it should be cured by then, and then we will unmold it, and we'll be ready to make our silicone mold out of it. This is just making the template. So you'll end up with something. Let me go grab one. Let me go grab one of my templates over here. You'll end up with something like this. This is for the first one that I made. And look, it has a little bubble in there. It does not matter at all. The bubbles that matter is if you have them right along the edge here, but all the bubbles I had were deeper in there. So you'll end up with something like this. Mine has scratches on this side, but this side does not have scratches. This is the smooth side, and so you always want to make sure before you use it, you wipe it off with alcohol. You don't touch it with anything except for gloves, so that it doesn't get fingerprints and get ruined. So, all right. So that being said, I'm going to go ahead and use my rest of my resin in something else, and keep my fingers crossed that that edge does not overflow. And then I will see you back here tomorrow for the next step. Okay, this is cured. Now, it does have a couple little flaws on the top here. Like there's like a bubble or something landed in it that rose up, a while into it. But that does not matter. What matters is the other side and the edges. So I'm going to try to get this off of here because this is a harder piece of plexiglass than I'm used to. So this might take me a second to figure out how to do this. I'm hoping I can just, oh my goodness. All right, I'm gonna pause this and I'm gonna get this off, and then I'll come back when I've gotten it taken off, okay? Otherwise it's gonna take me forever. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back, and this is why I really recommend using this kind of the sealant, because it just popped right off, and now I can unmold it from here and we can see what it looks like. Oh, that looks so cool. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna trim up some of these pieces on the side, but look at that. Look at how cool that looks. Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. This side is probably going to be a little weird because it does come out kind of far here, but I'm going to trim up just a couple of these little stragglers, and then maybe right here if I can get that part off, just so that it's a little even. But it will have a little like edge that comes out here, but oh my gosh. And then there's a couple little pieces like right here that I need to trim up. So I'm going to trim it up and clean it up. I am wearing gloves because I don't want to get any fingerprints on this. I'm probably going to have to clean it off with some alcohol before I start anyway. But I'm going to go trim it up, and then I'll be back so we can move on. Okay, I am back. Now, this is the first time I've used this particular thing. This is a springform pan, and I wanted to make a round mold so that it wastes a little bit less silicone. So I got this. It's 7 inches. It's a 7-inch springform, and I sprayed it with mold release. this is the mold release I used. And so I just sprayed it in there. I do this before I do all of them just so that it doesn't stick to anything. It's basically, it'll stick to the silicone, but it means that the silicone won't stick to the pan with any luck. So I did that. Here is the mold. It came out so cool. I trimmed it up in those few spots. It does have little quirks that make it unique, like this little piece sticking out here. Some reason I stuck that one in the putty a lot deeper. But the rest of it is pretty awesome. So what I'm going to do is I cleaned the top of this off with, I put a little bit of alcohol and I wiped it off with a smooth lint-free cloth, you know, like the kind you get to wash your glasses. And I'm wearing gloves the entire time. So I'm going to place this in here. It's a perfect fit. I just want to make sure it's centered in there. I already mixed up my silicone. This time I'm using Nick Pro silicone because it was on sale in a larger container than the Let's Resin. When you mix it up, you mix it up for 3 minutes. You measure it out by weight first. I made 2 cups, which is probably going to be too much, but I'm going to use the rest for something else in case it is. I just didn't want to run out. Although you could do it in layers, you know, make a cup or however much and then pour it on. And if it's not enough, then add more. So I just wanted to give it a try and hopefully I made enough. So I'm just going to gently pour it on top. And what'll happen is it will probably go a little bit underneath the template, but that's okay because we will cut away that part of it. So I'm just going to gently pour it. I don't want to create a lot of bubbles because this does have bubbles in it, but I've been pretty lucky so far by just pouring it gently into the housing. And this springform pan is a leak-proof springform pan. So it should be fine for holding the silicone and it should not leak. I mean, you think about it, you can put cheesecakes and cakes and all sorts of things in them. So this is actually, the liquid is probably thicker than that. So I'm gonna keep going because you want it to have at least 1/4 inch of depth. Okay. Let's see where we are here. I think I need a little bit more, not quite deep enough. That's probably deep enough. Yeah, maybe a little more. I'd rather it be too deep than too shallow because if it's too shallow, then what happens is you end up, you can break it or it'll rip easier. All right, so I'm gonna take a stick and stick it in here and see it's that deep, which is probably enough, but I don't have that much left in here, so I think I'm just gonna pour the rest of it in there. Just for good measure. Yeah, so that means this will have taken 16 ounces of silicone. And then when I take it out and I see how it is, I can decide for next time if I need to use less or more or whatever. Because this is the first time I've done it in this particular type of pan. I got these cups on Amazon. I'll put them in the description. They're really nice because you can pour a larger amount in them. And they aren't so big that you can't handle them. So that's what's going to happen there. Now this has to sit up. I'm going to probably just leave it overnight because I don't really have any time to unmold it earlier anyway. So there we go. It's done. So fingers crossed, everything comes out okay. You know me, I'm big about my fingers crossed. And hopefully it'll come out of the mold nice and we'll come back and see how it's doing tomorrow. Okay, I think the mold is ready. So for all that it said it was leak proof, this little pan was not leak proof. However, as soon as I saw it leaking, it did make a little bit of a mess. As soon as I saw it leaking, I tried to figure out a solution for it. So what I did is I took some foil and I sprayed it with mold release to make sure nothing would stick to it. And I put the pan in it and I pulled up the edges. And that really worked well. So I think that I will probably do that again so I don't have to get rid of my pan. Thankfully, I did that overfill, right? So it should be plenty of depth to it. So I'm peeling this off right now. I already took this off of here. And I'm going to take off the silicone right now. So hopefully it didn't stick super hard everywhere. So I'm gonna go ahead and take that off, and I'll be right back. I'm just gonna use a little knife to kind of cut in the groove there to cut it off. So I'll be back. I'm gonna do that off camera, so I'll be back. Okay, I didn't even need to use my knife. I just pulled it away and it broke off at this little edge right here. So I'm gonna undo the latch and see. I don't know how hard this is gonna be to pull this apart. Hopefully I can pull it apart. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm pushing really hard like that and it's loosening it up. So there we go. Loosened it up like this. There is a little bit in here. Just gonna pull it out for cleaning purposes. So I don't know, it's kind of fun to pull the silicone off things. So anyway, I'll finish that later. Kind of fun. All right. So I'm gonna have a little bit of a lip here that I'll have to cut off. That won't be an issue. All right, let's see if we can get this thing off here. It shouldn't stick, it's just getting it to start. There we go, just pulling it up and you can see it's loosening. All right, here we go. All right, so that came off, and like I told you, there's a film here. Okay, so I'm just gonna peel that off. I can clean up these edges later, but I'm just gonna take and help it get out in the little spots where it's not ripping because it's too thick. Doesn't have to be perfect. You can always go back and clean it up later. There we go. All right, so this is a little different. It's gonna have these little dots here and it's got a ridge here, but that any of that can be cleaned up. Whatever you want to clean up, you're just gonna use this little cuticle cutter, and I usually just take it like this and run it along and take off whatever parts I don't want. So like if I don't want this edge here, I'll just run it along and take it off like this. So anyway, I will do that on my own time. So here we go. Let's take this out and see how this mold looks. Now that is just discoloration from when I poured it in there. For some reason it made little lines, but I'd say that's pretty close to perfect. Yay! So what I'll do is I'll make something in it tonight and we'll see how it goes. It did shift over a little bit, but as long as it's got that good like 1/4 inch around the edge, then it should be fine. And it's thin. It could have been thicker because of the way it leaked, but it is thin enough. I mean, thick enough, so it'll work. But next time I think I'll fix the leak. I'll put the foil on sooner rather than later, and I think that that'll just minimize the leaking and it'll be okay. So I'm really glad I had that extra resin in there, right? I mean silicone, right? Okay. All right, so that is how I made my mold. And I will add one more little bit on here showing you what something looks like poured in the mold, and then we'll be done. Okay, I'll see you soon. Okay, that is the end of the video. You can see that this is what I started off with. And then this is the mold. Whoop, whoop. And then this is my first pour in the mold. And I love the way it came out on the sides. It came out so cool. All those little ice chips. Love it. That is what I'm going to call this mold, the ice chip mold. Let me know what you think. If you have any questions or comments, love to hear them. And I will see you next time. Bye.